Oh, okay. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really cool review for you from the brand Hervé watches. A little bit about them. Their operations are actually based out of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, but these watches are all designed in Singapore, and they're basically a micro brand with the goal of designing a future classic. And by that, they mean a new watch born in the 21st century with cues pretty much from greats gone by, and they really want to meld the past and present to form a timepiece that could be carried into the future, pairing those wonderful vintage aesthetics with modern technology for accuracy, reliability, and style. Now, this particular type of watch, I would categorize it as an everyday watch. And some key common characteristics in design language when you're looking for something you can wear every day, of course, you're going to want that versatile blend of sporty and dressy attributes. Now, this line is called the Alvia, and Hervé Watches was kind enough to actually send me the entire line, which was really cool. They followed me on Instagram. I took a look and I was like, cool, hey, let me know if you ever want to coordinate a review. And I kind of had trouble choosing which one to take a look at. And, I asked, hey, could I just maybe check them all out and check the whole line out? And they were cool about it. So big shout out to them for lending these over. Thank you for letting me get my hands on. And maybe you guys, the viewers, can even help me choose which one, should be my pick and which one is your pick in terms of a favorite. Now, this particular model, I think again it encapsulates that idea of a future classic, and basically they have, of course, that nice vintage-inspired, mid-sized, everyday watch design going on. Elegant three-hand model that pairs streamlined proportions with minimal design codes for timeless appeal, and basically each one of these dial options are limited to only 100 pieces. And the best part, guys, full price on these is only $360. Yes, 360, that's the full price, but if you go on their site right now, they're actually on sale for $306 direct from Hervé. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. All right, now, this is pretty crazy, guys. So $300 can get you a lot of watch for the money these days. And honestly, I think this line is a really great example of some real bang per buck in terms of you're getting the style, you're getting the materials, and hey, also the price point is pretty amazing. So where should we start? Let's just go ahead and start on the far end here. Bam. Here we go with the slate gray dial. And this is a looker, guys. In terms of, legibility, it's probably the least high contrast. So a very mellow dial that is quite, I think will blend really well and be, I think, quite casual looking. This was kind of, I think, my wife's pick in terms of which one she appreciated the most out of the bunch. When she looked at it, she really liked kind of the chic nature and the muted tones. I think, obviously, the color palette here is very nice. I also like that, of course, every watch has a very specific strap option that it was paired with, but these are pretty sweet, guys. So you get 38 millimeters in diameter with a 12 millimeter thickness, and that's including that sapphire vintage domed crystal there. We have a 47 millimeter lug to lug with, and then a 316L stainless steel construction, all fully brushed. Now this vintage dome, double dome AR coated sapphire is really nice. I really do like the play here at the furthest edges of the watch, and I like that the dial itself, although quite expansive, it does have that kind of outer chaptering, not as prominent here because it's in reverse, but you can see it here very nicely and prominently done on the blue dial model and as well as the black, where it actually does shrink the dial quite a bit. So the nice thing is you get the really nice expansive crystal, but it doesn't make the watch feel huge because it's kind of an all dial look. So they really did some magic with that, and it was just a really thoughtful design cue that I really enjoyed. Now we do have a fixed bezel, fully brushed, of course, and a screw down, nice enough, crown there, and it is nicely signed. So very cool from that standpoint. You bring it around to the rear, and of course you can see the movement inside. It's an automatic Seiko Instruments NH35A. So although these are no date, I don't mind it having a ghost position. That's not something that bothers me a lot. And honestly, I feel like the NH38 can be kind of finicky with the crown, so I'm actually happy to see that this has an NH35, even though it's a no date movement, just because I'm more into the kind of the tactile engagement in terms of hacking and then setting the time, versus, okay, well, I got to skip through a ghost position. I feel like the NH38, I've just had kind of mixed experience with it, where sometimes it can be very good, and other times it can just be a little bit mushy, and it can have trouble. I feel like setting the time just doesn't feel as sharp as other options, like let's say in a Miyota 9039 or a modded Salida movement, to have no date. Now you can see here that these all actually have a very nice and lovely sunburst dial. The black model, you might not have noticed had a sunburst dial because it's such a deep black, which actually I think plays well because they already have a slate gray dial model. Then you have, of course, the matte sea blue, and then we have the black onyx. With this black onyx dial, you're getting probably the best, deepest contrast here. So if you're just an ultimate kind of legibility guy and maybe want something that might skew into that end of things, which I'm kind of mixed. I feel like this almost could be the most casual, but somehow the most dressy option as well. It's a very interesting layout, and I feel like these kind of thoughtful design points really do play well. Now, again, we do have just nicely etched, and I did want to mention we do have kind of the limited number on there, so limited to 100 of each different variation. Also take a look at this strap, very nice, a little bit short for me. I think it could be about 5 millimeters longer on this end, and it probably would have been about perfect, but for me and my 7¼ inch wrist, I'm basically using probably like that second to last hole, which isn't a deal breaker or anything, because these have 20 millimeter lugs, which kind of make them strap monsters. But the strap that comes with it is actually super nice, I gotta say. And even the way that they put these in the box, they actually are being broken in quite well, because they're actually shipped kind of like this on the pillow, which is a nice feature versus them being flat and kind of stiff when you get them. They already do have a nice little kind of contoured form to them. And you can see that these lugs slope down really, really nicely. So although for a 38 millimeter watch, I would say 47 millimeters lug to lug is a touch on the long side. It's not like obscenely long, honestly. I think it actually helps the watch play really well, but they do slope down, so for any of you that are kind of concerned with that, I think it actually is, a very, very positive thing. And yeah, man, this Onyx dial kind of, I feel like it's taking me by surprise. I think initially it could seem kind of like the most boring option, but there's something about it, especially paired with this beautiful gray strap. And honestly, I think any one of these straps could probably be repaired with any other one of them. I'm surprised they don't sell the strap separately, but I do understand that, when you're a micro brand and you're buying everything and sourcing everything separately, buying extras isn't always the easiest thing, and you do end up having to invest quite a bit. One thing that is really interesting about these dials and hand layout is, of course, it's very clean. I love the contrast. All of them also do have, along with that sunburst dial, we have that matte black outer index track. And then the hands are all basically painted glossy, with the hour and minute being glossy black and then glossy white for the seconds hand. So you're getting some nice legibility from that standpoint, and you're not worrying about too much in terms of reflection. Also, another interesting choice is that the dial, it's listed as BGW9, while the hands are listed as having Japanese SLC1 loom. So I thought that was kind of, actually, it might be reversed. It might be the hands have the BGW9, and then or the hands. Who knows? We'll see when we get down to the to the low light and loom transition, and then also when if you guys just want to click in the links below, you can get a look at that. But I found the loom actually to look pretty good in terms. I mean, obviously it's fairly thin, and it's not like this is a big dive or anything. Again, this is meant to be an everyday watch, but I felt like the loom blended relatively well. Obviously, it's not a dedicated dress watch. It's not a dedicated, tool watch, field watch, whatever you want to call it. Although it does have a screw down crown, and it does have basically a sapphire sandwich. You get sapphire on the case back, sapphire on the front. So, there are some really nice, durable aspects to it. Also, with the screw down crown, you're getting 5 atmospheres, which is basically 50 meters of water resistance, which should be good enough for, taking any type of splashes, especially considering it does have that screw down crown, 20 millimeter lugs. So that's also obviously a great thing. But you know what? Let's get these pieces on wrist and see how they wear. All right, as you can see on my 7¼ inch wrist, especially with a little bit more arm in there, this thing is really proportional. And honestly, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the 38 millimeter range. I find sometimes I have ones that just wear way too small, and then others where they wear just right. This, I'm happy to report, is on the just right side. So although we do have the smaller diameter for physically smaller wearing watch, the visual aesthetic here is definitely elongated by those lugs, as well as just really beautifully proportioned dial aesthetics, dial to bezel ratio there. And then as you can, some of you are in for a treat, because I normally, obviously I'm left-handed, so I wear my watches on my right wrist. So I don't really wear them on my left, but you guys kind of get a look here, how this will appear on the left side as well, which is the more traditional side for most wearers. And yeah, I think this thing wears really nicely. Great size. Again, I think it's just, that's a looker, man. Look at that guy. It catches the light really well. I love the contoured lugs there. Very reminiscent of course, very classic Seamasters. Nice kind of turn down sweep to it. Wears really well, I gotta say. Quite a looker. Then we got this beautiful color combination. For me, it definitely kind of reminds me of my Manta Triumph. Even the color play with the red, the red text, and then this kind of chestnut strap, I think looks really, really great. You know what, matter of fact, let's actually get the black on wrist very quickly, so you guys can get an idea of how it wears as well, and see just how uncoordinated I am when I reach around a tripod. Cool. So as you can see there, guys, down to kind of the last two, but it does fit really nicely. And I think this black dial is kind of the sleeper hit here. I'm typically very picky when it comes to black dial watches, but man, this one has a cool kind of low-key versatility to it. I think the pairing with the gray strap is really wonderful, and then you kind of look at it up close and you find more to love, versus these ones are a little bit louder and shoutier in terms of the that great sunray finish there, which catches light and plays with it really well. Here it's much more subdued, and you can see that it's a much deeper black, and then when you hit it in the reflection, you start getting very, very faint touches and details. So I know for some people, kind of the sunray look can honestly appear a bit cheap sometimes. I don't think that's necessarily the case here, but for those of you that are kind of on that camp where you're not really huge fans of sunray dials, the more subdued look here, I think, is a really nice balance and just adds a touch more refinement. So yeah, I'm really surprised by how taken I am with this black model. Again, being a bit of the dark horse, no pun intended. Actually, you know what? Pun intended, guys. I'm going to commit. So yeah, but this thing wears really well. Check out how low slung it is, how it just wraps around the wrist. And then you do get some nice distortion and play on those really deep outer edges of the crystal there. Of course, it is a sapphire, so it's going to have a slightly opaque, kind of almost milky appearance at very, very harsh angles versus if you were to have a mineral or a plexiglass crystal. But for me, the trade-off is well worth it, honestly. These still look bang on, looking straight at them, and maybe don't have necessarily the really high grade clarity that you would be able to get with something vintage domed, but you get way more durability, so you're going to keep it looking good for a much longer time. So with all that, actually, let's get these pieces back off the wrist, set on the table, do some low light transition, and loom shots and closing thoughts. All right, we'll go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, again, not huge loom beasts by any terms. Honestly, I look at these and they all kind of glow green to me. So when I saw the listing of BGW9, it definitely kind of threw me off a little bit. It might just be the mixture, or it might just be the lighting playing with me because, I'm looking at this through a tiny screen, or I'm looking at it through my eyes, which are still adjusting due to having sat here with these super bright studio lights on. But one thing I like to work in is some low light transition shots, and hopefully this will give you kind of a better idea of the way that these colors render, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of the times you're going to be in some mixed lighting conditions, less than optimal, maybe even some harsh high contrast lighting. So I do try to simulate that here. So you can see the way these colors render in terms of the dial, in terms of the straps, and then also some of those really nice finishes and textures. And then I can even get in again to some of this high contrast lighting where it typically will expose any type of imperfections. Here it's a pretty nicely brushed setup, but it definitely has more of an industrial grade feel. I'm sure that's purposeful. It's not really meant to be some super refined dedicated dress watch. But one thing you'll notice is look how much more this dial on the black comes to life in this mixed lighting. Very, very, very cool. I'm digging that. You can see here the contrast on the blue dial and the gray dial are definitely lower contrast, a bit more of kind of a mood change versus a real direct. So you're getting more of a highlight over gray, highlight over blue, but then you're getting very faint kind of play when it comes to over black, the way that it absorbs and plays with the light. But very gorgeous, and honestly still quite legible. Like if you look at them in this light, obviously the black ends up being more readable, with I'd say the blue probably coming in second and then third, respectively. You do get that slate gray, which still looks fantastic. But yeah, I could say that probably in terms of legibility is going to be a little bit tougher, especially with the camera adjusting to kind of the different colorways that are happening on the screen all at once. With just the gray on the wrist, it definitely is perfectly legible and fine. It's just not quite as high contrast. Now, in terms of closing thoughts, guys, on the wrist, these things wear perfect. You get the larger visual presence due to those dial proportions and slightly elongated lugs, but they do turn down very nicely in terms of kind of for wear purposes. So although they do have a little bit longer tooth ends there in terms of those lugs, and they do bite nicely into the wrist and in a nice way with the curvature kind of following your wrist there versus, being very flat and kind of jutting out. So you don't have to worry about any of that in these cases. In terms of model variants, this is it, guys. You get the slate gray, the matte sea blue, or the black onyx, and then each does come with those specific color pairings for the straps. In terms of comparable models and kind of the place in the space, honestly, this is a completely extremely competitive market, but I think these offer a ton of bang per buck versus its competitors that are out there. It uses this kind of clean, understated aesthetic to kind of also outclass many of its rivals within the price point. So yeah, these are really cool. Bottom line, guys, these are true triple threat, and not just in kind of the colorway options, but in terms of being well designed, well built, and well priced. I honestly expect to see these sell out pretty quickly. So if you'd like you know, if you like what you see, take advantage now, kind of before the word gets out about this cool little brand and just how nice these puppies really are. So with all that, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What's your pick? Which one is shouting at you? Hey, even let me know which one is like, whoa, maybe they shouldn't do another one of those, and which one needs major tweaking, if you have any of those opinions as well. Yeah, just let me know what you guys think. For me, I think I kind of started out being very attracted to that slate gray. I'm always a lover of the blue dial, but I feel like the black kind of crept up on me and snuck up a little bit as a really, really interesting choice. So again, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Love to chat. And then if you like the video, please do hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.